Lesson 2. The First Financial Threshold. Greetings. Welcome to Lesson 2 in the Complete Generational Wealth Building System. In the last lesson, we established the 4 pillars of real wealth. Make it. Keep it. Invest it. Pass it on. Today, we move into the first real battlefield. Because before wealth can be built, something else must happen first. You must cross the first financial threshold. There is a moment in life that changes everything. In the journey of building a lasting generational wealth, that moment is making your first million, having your first million sitting in the bank, and not needing to touch it for anything except investment. That is when the game changes. Most people never arrive there. They may earn decent money for years, even decades, but they never truly accumulate. This threshold is not luxury. It is not status. It is not comfort. It is something far more important. It is the point where survival worries begins to lose control over your thinking. That is the real threshold. Why 1 million is the real starting line? Because until then, most financial decisions are not strategic. They are reactive. When a person is constantly worried about bills, rent, unexpected costs, or whether the month will stretch to the end, they may still be intelligent. They may still be hardworking. But they are not operating in freedom. They are operating in pressure. And pressure changes everything. Pressure shortens vision. Pressure creates urgency. Pressure forces attention toward immediate needs. And when the mind is trapped in immediate needs, it becomes very difficult to think in years. That is why many capable people never truly begin building the wealth. Not because they lack potential, but because they never remain above the waterline long enough to think beyond the next wave. So let us define this clearly. The first financial threshold of 1 million is the moment when you have built enough breathing room, enough reserve, enough control, enough stability, that you can begin making money decisions from strategy instead of fear. This does not mean you have become wealthy. Far from it. It simply means you now have a foundation. And without a foundation, every move feels urgent. Every risk feels dangerous. Every setback feels catastrophic. That is not a wealth-building environment. That is a survival environment. And survival environments produce short-term decisions. Now here is an important truth. Many people spend years earning, but never truly cross this threshold. Their income rises, but so does their lifestyle. Their opportunities increase, but so do their obligations. Outwardly, they may look like they are progressing, but internally, they remain financially fragile. That is why the first threshold is not about income alone. It is about retained strength. The first serious pool of capital does something powerful. It changes your psychology. When you know you can handle an emergency, you think differently. When a temporary income interruption does not create panic, you think differently. And that shift matters more than most people realize. Because wealth is not built only by the decisions you make. It is also built by the bad decisions you finally stop making. Desperation makes weak opportunities look attractive. It makes bad deals feel urgent. It makes people accept poor terms, or enter situations they would never choose if they had more breathing room. That is why the first financial threshold is sacred. It is the ground beneath the building. And if the ground is weak, the building will always shake. So how do you cross this threshold? Not through drama. Not through one lucky trade. Not through a miracle month. You cross it through discipline. First, cut what weakens you. Not what looks impressive to others. Any habit that consumes surplus, without improving health, skill, or stability, must be examined. Your first million is the floor beneath which real wealth cannot stand. This is where growth begins. Many people say they want wealth, but protect the very habits that prevent it. Second, protect the gap. The gap between what comes in and what leaves. That gap is not just a change. That gap is true grit. That gap is future strength. That gap is the raw material from which reserves are built, skills are funded, mistakes are survived, and assets are later acquired. If the gap disappears, the future gets delayed. Third, invest in capacity before appearances. Money spent on image often dies. Money spent on skill, tools, learning, systems, and capability can multiply. This is one of the most important distinctions in the entire wealth journey. Early comfort is expensive. Early capability is powerful. Choose capability. Fourth, build stability before ambition. Many people want to jump into investing before they have even built basic resilience. That is dangerous. If you place money into risk before building a stable base, you may not be investing. You may simply be gambling with money you cannot afford to lose. And that is not how durable wealth begins. Durable wealth begins with a calm foundation. Because once you cross the first threshold, something important happens. You stop reaching for money in panic. And you begin placing money with intention. That is a different life. Not because you suddenly became rich, but because your decisions become stronger. And stronger decisions, repeated long enough, are what eventually create wealth. So remember this carefully. The first financial threshold is not the finish line. It is not wealth itself. It is the point at which building the wealth becomes possible. Before it, you are trying to survive. After it, you can finally start to build. That is why this phase must be respected, not rushed, not skipped, not romanticized. Respected, because if you build this stage properly, the rest of the journey becomes more intelligent. And if you ignore it, you may spend years moving without truly advancing. The people who cross the first million threshold enter a different financial reality. Everything after that begins to create leverage. Everything before that is still foundation. So remember, before leverage, build stability. Before comfort, build capacity. Before luxury, build the base. That is how growth of wealth begins. Thank you. In the next lesson, we will talk about the employment trap. Why a job can support your life, but can never be mistaken for a complete wealth strategy. This is the generational wealth building system they never taught you in schools. Stay disciplined. Stay focused. Stay blessed.